little bit. Hello, hello, hello. Today I am here with Amy Whitney, and we are going to be talking about finding freedom abroad. This is going to be such an amazing conversation all around traveling, entrepreneurship, success. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I am the host here at Her Talk Show. If you have not already subscribed, girl, get on that subscribe button. These podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life. Let's jump right in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love. We have had over 500 women grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. At 32, Amy sold her house and everything she owned to move to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with only 2 years of savings and no reliable income source and a burning desire to stay in Mexico. She had to find a way to earn online. Amy started Expat Spanish Lessons and is helping other expats to learn Spanish and live their dream without language barriers. Super excited to have this lady joining us today. Welcome, Amy.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's really great to meet you, be talking, and to grace this stage as 500 and I don't know what to add to your numbers. That's amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. And I'm super excited to dive into this. I know that you've done so much in the world of entrepreneurship. And what a great journey and great story. I'm super excited to jump in. You know, there's so many individuals that are just trying to get one business started. And it's really awesome to be able to sit here with somebody who's had several businesses. And one of the things that I really appreciate about learning a little bit about you is your authenticity regarding businesses' success and businesses that have failed, and your conversation around that and your open dialogue around that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, being an entrepreneur, like, it's always a journey, right? You're going to be having the ups, we have the downs, we have the blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, you know, sometimes a lot of tears. But it's really about finding what you're supposed to be doing, I think. Finding a need that is not being served or an area where you can go in and you can do a little bit better, and trying to find that alignment with what you are that expert in, and just being able to see that opportunity that no one else can see. And, you know, sometimes we see an opportunity, but the market's not ready for it. And, you know, we got to cut the cord sometimes. It hurts though. It's like your business, baby, you know?
Yes. Yes. So what, before we get into all the juiciness, what led you to start your very first business? Was this with a partner? Was this like mom and dad were entrepreneurs? What's your story?
Yeah. So, you know, looking back, I can see that the inspiration definitely came from my grandpa. He started actually a power line business way back in, I don't know, 1940 or something like that. And, you know, I think that influence really led me to consider being an entrepreneur. But in my family, aside from him, I really don't have a lot of mentorship in that sort of way. But I remember back when I was 18, 19 years old, I remember thinking like, man, these wages stink. Like, what can I do differently here? And I think the idea, it was a combination of wanting to invent something, but I didn't have, you know, a magic contraption to bring to the world. So I thought, well, the next best thing would really be maybe creating a business, because in that way, I'm the one that's really driving the ship. And, you know, being in a job, it can feel, the security isn't always there, right? The person who hired you has the same power to fire you. But when it's your own thing, if you're actually putting in the work, giving it all you've got something that's likely to be able to support you. So I think it's all of that stuff that kind of drove me to want to start. The problem was I really had nothing to start with. I was having to bootstrap my first business. I didn't have anything aside from a used car and a $500 credit card, no, very, very low credit at that time in my early 20s. And I thought, well, what can I do? And I decided to start a delivery business, actually. And the primary thing that we were delivering at the time were actually drinks, like alcoholic beverages, to stop people from drinking and driving. That was really what the motive was behind the business. And yeah, I mean, it taught me a lot. Sure taught me what I didn't want in a hurry. I had this idea that in order to have a service like that, I had to work 7 days a week. As we all know, that leads to some burnout and a bit of resentment about what you're doing. And, I forgot to say, I started this business with my partner. We've been together, we're still together. So we've survived 20 years together, working together in businesses throughout those years. But yeah, we found after a few years that we had kind of built ourselves a box that we didn't want to be in. The business was, it was doing okay, but it was more like a self-created job. And we were just kind of in a spot where we felt stuck, and we knew we didn't really want to keep going on that path. So that's how I got into it anyway.
How expansive was that business? Did you have a couple people working under you, or was it you and him kind of driving around?
Yeah, we were on the road as well. The nature of a delivery business is you have a lot of peaks and valleys in terms of the demand throughout the day. So near dinner time, for example, was a really intense period. So we would always have drivers that would be working with us. I think at the peak, we had 5 or 6 drivers and a dispatcher that were working with us. And, on Mondays and Tuesdays, a couple of people could run the show, no problem.
That's awesome. What a great concept. Did you have alcohol on hand?
Yeah, this goes back to liquor laws across different provinces and states and things like that. So in British Columbia, I'm from Canada originally, Kelowna. So in British Columbia, what we had to do was actually purchase the product from the store, and then we would add a delivery charge on top of the alcohol for the earnings of the business, essentially. So no liquor barn in the backyard. But yeah, we just did a lot of shopping and, took advantage of those credit card points. And that's actually what led me into traveling and the influence of Latin America and falling in love with it as well.
Because you had so many travel points?
Yeah, from purchasing so much liquor.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So you had all these traveling points. You're like, let's just go travel. Let's take a vacay.
Yeah, like essentially every year we had about $4,000 that we would rack up in travel points, and that would allow us to have a vacation for 2 to 4 weeks per year. And, otherwise, honestly, I don't think I would have been able to afford to travel. So very grateful for that perk of the job.
Wow, that is so cool. Good for you. What was the first place you visited?
Oh, that's a good question. Way back. Oh, yeah. This is when I decided what I didn't like. My friend, thankfully, my friend said, Amy, working 7 days a week is insane. You need a vacation. And I fought her on that. I was like, nope, can't do it. She's like, just shut the business down for a couple of weeks. It's okay. And she convinced me to go on an 11-day cruise in the Caribbean. And I realized that I really didn't like that style of travel. It was very structured. I mean, the food was amazing, but aside from that, it was like, get off the ship, go see some tour they want you to see, get back on. It felt like a conveyor belt of thousands of people. So that was my first vacation, but my first real vacation where I did what I wanted to do was in Costa Rica, actually. Wow. And luckily, the first one taught me or reminded me of my interest with Spanish. And before going to Costa Rica, I, was brushing up on my skills and trying to bring it to the country. Failed miserably on arrival, but it's all fun.
That is so cool. I've never been out of the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to. It is something, it changes your view on the world and what you think within your bubble, your corner of the planet, and how things are done. When you go out and you see what other people do, how the world works around them, the happiness that people with so little can experience, it really makes you look at yourself, and it expands your mind. Highly recommend it.
That is so cool. As far as entrepreneurship goes, when you talk about finding freedom abroad, does that freedom include working for yourself?
Yeah.
Or is that it does?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like work. I mean, for me, first of all, if we kind of flip the times, right? A decade ago, I was so lucky to have 2 or 3 weeks off to go actually do what I lived for, which was to travel. And every time that we went on one of those trips, I was saying, yeah, I mean, everybody says this, I don't want to go back home. But I meant, like, I want to live here. I don't want to go back home. I want to stay. I want to make this my home, but I don't know how. I don't know how to earn online. So that making that wish a reality, where for like right now, when I go on vacation, I just go somewhere else in Mexico, or I fly back to Canada for a couple weeks. But right now, for example, later today, after I'm finished working, if I want to go to the beach and watch a sunset, 10 minutes away, and that type of thing. You don't have to be retired to have that freedom. I think, I mean, for me, I don't think I'll ever retire. I love to learn. I love to do. I love to be busy. So, we might as well do something that helps a lot of people along the way.
Definitely. I know you talk a lot about how the niche that you have found yourself in now is what you feel as if you were born to do. And before we really dive into that, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the entire journey to get here, because I feel like I would love for you to talk about this, because I feel like so many times when individuals jump into entrepreneurship, there's this heaviness of like having to figure out what you want to do, and then feeling like you have to do that thing forever until you die. And then I feel like there's this like disconnect of, I can't pivot because if I pivot, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
Versus exactly what your story is, where you've done things that don't even necessarily relate. You said one led to the other in a way, but like they're not parallel. They're totally all over the place.
For sure.
So talk to us a little bit about that journey that has led you to this passion that you are now on, just to give people an insight of it's okay to like change your mind.
Yeah. And you know what? It's okay to change your mind. And if you're struggling and it seems like things aren't working, I mean, that's normal. I think we all go through that. And that opportunity or that change can just be around the corner. It's like it's a hidden door. It's behind something that you can't see yet, or the timeline hasn't matched up with that opportunity. But, just what you need to do to kind of keep going and keep looking for it, for sure. So yeah, as I talked about, with the delivery service, my husband and I, we started it with what we had. We made something out of nothing, essentially, worked our butts off to get that thing into a business that could support us. And I mean, it got us our first house, which was really important. And, we were working and realizing, wow, it felt like we had a ceiling on the business. In order for us to get to the next level, we had to almost triple the amount of deliveries that we were doing, get to like a building with a full-time dispatcher. And I wasn't really sure that I wanted to do that at that point. It just sounded like an exhausting nightmare, which, at that point when you don't have, sorry, hang on a sec. Let me deactivate this timer. So with that sort of situation, you've got to make a change, right? There's nothing else that you like. You're kind of at the end. You've lost the motivation and the passion that you have for what you were doing at the time. The problem was for us, due to that not new house, it was a very old house. It was a foreclosure. And in order to make that house a place that we wanted to live in, and really an income source, we had to put a suite downstairs, do a lot of renovations, and we were carrying a lot of debt from that investment that we did. And it really felt that we were trapped in that business, right? Those credit card points, those same ones that we were spinning around and enjoying, they were also spinning around some of the debt that we had. And, it was like, well, if we stop the delivery business, what are we going to do? Right? How are we going to get to that next level or get to that next stage, sell the business, or I don't know what's next, So what happened was really just waiting and playing the cards and trying to take those steps little by little towards something else. Along the way, I started up a small e-commerce business, and I was selling things on eBay. That was kind of my first toe dip into digital marketing, and that turned out to be a really, really important move on my journey later on to be familiar with that sort of stuff. But really what happened was the housing market had a turnaround. That investment with that debt that we were carrying from that suddenly flipped and turned into an asset with the equity that we had. And, when the opportunity came, we were in a place where we were able to make that decision we had really a decision. Sell the house, have 6 months in Canada to figure out something else, which is honestly not a lot of time. Whether you go to take some additional education or start a new business, that's not very much time. Or we could move somewhere else for 2 years, like Mexico, because the dollar to peso value is a little bit more favorable. And that would give me really that kick I needed to get out of the delivery business once and for all, and really dive into that digital world with the online process. Now, there's something else that came up. I just want to backstep because, as you said, running more than one business, I've been doing this for a while. So it's kind of like my story is here, but there's a parallel going on at the same time. So during the time that we had our delivery business, we actually hit this point, my husband and I, where we were just done with what was going on. And we didn't know what to do. We didn't know if we should sell the business, close it down, get another job. So we decided that the kind of stepping stone in between was actually going out and getting a full-time job, testing that out for a couple months and seeing how we felt about it. And what was interesting that came out of that, we hired some help to cover us so that we didn't have to do the deliveries during that time. And what happened was this mental reprieve came in. And when you have that, the creativity comes back, the passion comes back for really what you're doing. And we decided to launch a multi-restaurant delivery service. This is like Uber Eats before its time. Okay. So we launched this multi-restaurant delivery service. We had 37 restaurants at the peak of the time that we were doing that. And that actually caught the attention of a software developer who was developing online ordering systems for small restaurants. And he reached out to me initially as a salesperson within the region, earning commission. And he realized very quickly that I'd be a good business partner for him and really bringing the marketing aspect and that sort of thing. So shortly after that, we started working together. I mean, I've never worked in software. I don't know anything about this sort of world. But anyway, I worked on that for a couple of years, and it gave me that I knew I could work remotely. I knew I wanted to live abroad, and that was the seed that I thought, oh, okay, if I cultivate this is going to be the way that I can get out of the delivery business and come back into this online space and live where I want. So things were ticking along. I was actually on my first rodeo of working abroad. I was in Ecuador. We had 6 weeks planned to go there. And I had this beautiful condo, surfable longboard, surfing waves in the front, which I love that sport and that type of activity. Out the front window, I was in paradise. And I realized that when I was there, I had brought all of this stress from my business with this business partner, this online ordering business partner. And I didn't realize that I was sitting on a ticking time bomb. But literally during that first week on that vacation, my business partner turned. This was right at the point where we were making a little bit of money as well. He completely turned on me and hated me pretty much with everything in his soul, which, how are you supposed to work with someone like that, right? Like, it was past resolution. And I decided that the relationship was very, very toxic, and that really for my own well-being, I needed to walk away. And that was a difficult moment, because I was right on that edge of, getting out of the deliveries. I had my next nest egg, and, just having to start over again and not really know what to do in that moment was really difficult. But that actually led to a little bit of an inspiration for teaching Spanish. When I was down there in Ecuador, we were staying in a condo with a bunch of expats, or expatriates, who essentially are from the United States or Canada, and they're living abroad, as their preference. And I noticed that a lot of them didn't speak Spanish, and they had tried and they had failed, and they had frankly given up. And I was seeing that and thinking, man, how can you live abroad and not speak the local language? Like, how is that not important to these people? But I also knew how difficult it was to learn Spanish. I was still a beginner at the time. I had about 14 years of being a beginner under my belt. But I knew that there was a need for that. Put that back in my back pocket for later, stored that idea, came back to Canada, like, what's next? Took me about 3 months to come up with a new business idea. And what was really helping me with my Spanish was actually studying conversations. That was something that was really allowing me to break through to that next level. And I said to my husband, why don't we get a microphone and put it on the table and have these authentic English conversations that ESL learners, people who are learning English, can listen to us and our stories and what we're doing. And maybe we can sell some transcripts or something and get some income online. And that's literally how that thing started. Fast forward a few years, I really excelled with my Spanish learning, and I was taking that knowledge of how to learn a language effectively, transferring it into advice that I could give to English learners, built several courses for Real English Conversations. Our podcast grew very, very quickly. It's still running currently. We have about 12,000 downloads a day, every single day from around the world, people listening to us and enjoying our conversations. And things were, pretty good with that. They seem to be on the right direction. So where did Mexico come in the middle of this mess? It was actually in the early stages with Real English Conversations. We had just started to earn a tiny bit of money, probably about $500 a month. And, just realizing, okay, what are we going to do? We can sell our house. We've got a little bit of income. If we put all we've got into this, maybe we can make a fly out of it. So do you want to stay in Canada, or do you want to live in Mexico for a couple of years, Curtis, and see what happens? And he said, let's go to Mexico. Sounds like a way better idea. So that's what we did. We sold our house. We were able to get enough to clear our debt, have 2 years of savings in the bank, and really work on the business for a couple of years. And obviously that's when the podcast grew and the courses were built and all of that sort of thing. So that one's kind of the where I am now, where I was over the past few years, and where I'm going next with Expat Spanish. Do you want me to talk about some of the challenges with Real English Conversations? Yeah.
No, I would like you to talk about some of the challenges, feelings regarding the shifts and the pivots.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, being in any sort of business, when you've put your heart and soul and everything extra that you've got into it, and having to make really difficult decisions is, it feels like you're playing with your future. And there's the, but what if? Because we're always optimistic, right? We want our business to be super successful. We have the intention that it will be if we do this work, put in the time, do the steps that we need to do. And it almost feels like when you're turning away from that, like the what ifs really come in, and, you know, you go back and forth for a while until there has to be like a hard no on certain things. So, you know, with the online ordering business, for example, that one was hard. That was like a shock out of left field. I felt that I had done all the right steps to align with a business that could provide for what I wanted living abroad, and done a lot of work and development with the digital marketing and things like that. So when that one came, it was not only an ugly business breakup, very, very stressful. It just left me completely unprepared and not really sure what to do next. So that one, you know, went from having all the security in the world and things are on the right path, to all of that work that I've done has just crumbled before my eyes, and I'm back to where I started before. You know, with Real English Conversations, I think that one was one of the hardest ones to shift my main focus on to Expat Spanish, which I transitioned to at the same time. I still have both of these businesses running. That one felt like the signs from the universe for probably the last 4 years have been saying to me, Amy, this is not what you need to be doing. There's something more, there's something better that you can be doing. And it was really conflicting because the numbers that we had with our successful podcast, and I mean, we had a lot of, I've learned how to do SEO. So Google searches, we come up very high on the list. You know, we have great numbers coming to our website, but what was really coming into the bank wasn't what we needed. It was okay. It was just enough. It wasn't what we needed to be able to save for retirement, to be able to buy a house, to be able to build the life that we wanted to do. So having that, you know, these numbers are great. I should be doing great. I mean, I even joined a business coaching program to try to help me figure out what was wrong. What was I doing wrong with my business? Everything seemed fine. Nobody could help me. No one could figure it out. And eventually it came to a point where it was just like, I have to reduce my hours and my focus on this business. And this other business, Expat Spanish, I've done, you know, about this much work on it and got this much result. Clearly it's where I need to focus, but just being torn between so many opportunities and so many different directions that you can go, it's really hard. And, you know, you have to kind of tune into your gut and what you feel, what you enjoy, and decide really the direction that you want to go. And I've always wanted to teach Spanish. I really have. I've always wanted to. After I figured out how to learn, I went from a beginner after 14 years of struggling. Within about a year, I figured out how to really be able to speak fairly fluently in the language. I reached an advanced level. And, you know, just seeing how much everyone else was struggling, and living here in Puerto Vallarta, looking around, seeing a ton of expats, people that have made this brave move to start a new life abroad. And the one thing they didn't prepare for was the language, or underestimated how difficult it would be to learn the language. And just seeing how disconnected they are really from their community and from the new country that they're really making their home. And I knew I could figure out a better way to help them and support them and open up those doors, you know, so they can have that connection and community and communication with the people around them. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I want to ask, you know, what is the alignment between what you are doing now versus your past? Because this is the thing. I'm sure in this business that you're in now, there were still ups and downs in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
So how does somebody know when to like trash something? Right?
That's a good question.
Because there's difficulties, even though it's like, yes, I'm fully aligned with Expat Spanish, and this is where my heart is. It doesn't mean that it's just like flowing perfectly every single day from day one.
Yes.
Right. There's still thrashing. There's still ups and downs and and things that I'm sure happen. So how does somebody know, like, how did you know that like you were just done? And then with this one, even though there's still ups and downs, like, what's the difference, like internally or feelings or mentally? Kind of work through that with us.
Yeah, for sure. So I've referenced a couple of times the stats, right? I have all this traffic. I have all of these listeners on my podcast, and that led me into a space where I was really confused. But those are kind of vanity stats, right? We're not really looking at what matters. So looking in the rearview mirror of what I would have done differently with Real English Conversations and probably pulled the plug a lot sooner, or at least shifted my focus a lot sooner to something else, was probably the first time I remember having this conversation very clearly with my husband. Okay, Curtis, if I do the translation, for example, if I do the translation of the sales pages and I make them into 4 different languages, because that might be the obstacle. That's not, that's the reason why people aren't buying, because English is not their native language. They can't understand clearly what's on the page. They're scared to buy. That was the logic. If I do this, because this is the last thing I've got in the tank, man, and we don't have an improvement in our sales, man, I've got to draw the line in the sand. This is it. Except I drew like 20 lines and I didn't stop. So when you start doing that, that's a really, really good sign when you're kind of tapped out, you've tried everything. Now, it might be also that it's not your zone of expertise. Like for me, marketing had been something that I really grew into, and I love marketing. It's my passion even currently. So I know that with that business, I was doing the right things in that area, but it wasn't really giving the effort that was going into it. The return wasn't there. And it's not like I gave it 2 months, 3 months, or even a year. We're talking about a 7-year journey. And really for the past 4 years, it just kind of plateaued. And, it didn't matter what we tried or what we did differently. It just wasn't really going where it needed to. The alignment here with Expat Spanish that I feel in comparison with that is, as an example, when I was testing the water, because I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? Long story short, actually interesting story. But long story short is, with Real English Conversations, what happened was I joined a business coaching program. That helped me to realize that this idea of make money while you sleep, sell digital products wasn't really where the market was at right now. And by adding a live element with teachers, we'd probably have more success. And that's what we did. In January, I can't remember what year, it might have been 2021, we had our first $10,000 month, which was amazing. And we maintained that for January, February, and March. Come April, I had what I call technical Armageddon hit my website. Basically lost all profits that I had earned on the first 3 months of the year trying to recover my website. I lost, the website was just down and nobody could figure out how to fix it. I had 3 different developers and software companies trying to figure out and get this thing back online. That was one of those signs from the universe telling me, like, man, what do I need to do? Blow up your website? This isn't the path. But anyway, got through that, came through the other side, got the business back on its feet. And what happened was, for the last part of the year, for no reason at all, sales just pretty much nothing for about 4 months. And that was the moment where Expat Spanish Lessons came in, and I pulled that card out of my back pocket that I had put there for a long time. And I said, you know what? I think it's time to give this thing a go. And I put a Facebook post out there. Hey, I'm just wondering if everybody's tired of learning online, or if you're looking for online Spanish classes, just kind of doing a survey to find out what people are looking for these days. Within 2 days, this is one Facebook group locally here in Puerto Vallarta. Within 2 days, that post had 250 comments. And out of that, I was able to fill 2 courses, my first 2 courses that I ever ran with the Spanish school. And, when you see something that's so obvious, of how easy it is compared to the struggle in another business, it's pretty easy to say like, hey, this is obviously where I need to be going. There's a lot more demand or interest in what I'm doing, or the market is ready, versus the other one. It's just the struggle that doesn't end, and probably adding maybe timelines or barriers, to measure and mark your progress to see if you're moving forward, I think is really, really important. Because if you're not doing that, you're in a place where you either need to stop or you need to get help, right? Obviously, get help is first, because you don't want to give up. It might just be something that you don't understand about business yet. That's where groups like I'm sure what you do in your community is a support program for entrepreneurs, right? The people that have been down that road, they can see things and they know things that you can't see yet. And, it's really, really valuable having that sort of information and connection with people.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has definitely been super interesting. Love the journey that you have been on, and the realism of, excitement about entrepreneurship. Some of them turning into jobs. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And then really finding something that you're aligned with right now. I think it's just absolutely beautiful. We have a ton of people watching live right now. I would love for you to talk more about what you are doing right now in your business, and who specifically should be reaching out to you. Who do you help?
Okay, sure. So Expat Spanish Lessons is a very niched market with Spanish. I specifically work with people that are living in Mexico already or are planning on relocating here soon. We might think about Spanish just as Spanish, but there are actually quite a few different dialects, and Mexican Spanish is definitely its own can of worms. So I really focus on helping people that are even snowbirds, people that are here for several months of the year are good candidates. My focus is really on a practical Spanish. And this is something that I realized was part of the reason why I was struggling so hard with Spanish. I was learning a lot about grammar and random vocabulary just for the sake of learning Spanish. But whenever I was in a situation where I needed to use my Spanish, usually it was in a restaurant, buying things, just day-to-day stuff that you're doing. If you're traveling in a place for any extensive amount of time, it's what you're doing, or living in a place, obviously. And I realized that what I was learning in various programs, I tried everything: Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, textbooks, private tutors, all of this stuff. It's all textbook Spanish, and they're neglecting that practical stuff that you can immediately go out and use. So essentially what I've done is taken my own path, the journey of how not to learn a language effectively, applied and paid attention to the things that work, and designed a program that can get people speaking and using their Spanish from the very first lesson. And it's really exciting because, it's rewarding and gratifying when you can learn something and go out and use it right away. So if anybody watching right now knows somebody who's made that brave move to relocate to Mexico, and, they might tell you, oh yeah, I'm learning Spanish. But if they've been saying that for a while and they're still struggling, I would love an introduction, just even sharing this interview, for example, or sharing my website, and just letting them know that this might be a resource to check out to get them started on the right foot with Spanish. And yeah.
Awesome. And if people wanted to learn more about this and follow you on social media, what are your websites? Where can people find you? And where do you hang out on social media?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is expatspanishlessons.com. And I think we've got it just below my name there for the spelling and that sort of thing. The social media for Facebook, same name, Expat Spanish. Okay, Facebook.com/expat Spanish. And we have expat.spanish.lessons on Instagram as well. And, we, even if you're just curious about checking out Spanish and what we do, we've got a free mini course on our website. We call it the 7-Day Spanish Jumpstart. And, it's a good way to kind of just come into the language, check it out, play around with it a little bit. And even if it's just for a vacation, it's fun. It's so much better when you're able to just connect with the local people, even if it's just a couple of words. You just see them light up at the effort of you trying to speak their language. It's like, it's a big honor for Mexicans to hear it. So, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate the journey that you have been on. And I think that this gives so many individuals hope. Here in her nation, a large percentage of women are female entrepreneurs who are, just stepping into it, or maybe they're in the middle of a pivot, or maybe they're in the middle of a thrash. But, hearing stories like this is definitely an inspiration for individuals who know that they want to be working for themselves, know that they love the freedom that it can bring, but still on the journey of finding out, that thing, the thing that's theirs, that they're really passionate about, which is what you talk about regarding Expat Spanish. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you watching live, thank you. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so we can send you some love. If you resonated with Amy and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure to check out her website, expatSpanishLessons.com. It is in a clickable link, maybe, in the description below. I'm sure she'll go back and she'll catch up on any comments and make sure that her information is placed there below, and her social media. Any closing thoughts, Amy, as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think what you just said about the journey or the messy middle and just feeling like you're in that space and you're not sure, maybe you're not sure, right? You're doing your thing. It seems exciting, seems like something you could do for a while, but you're not really sure. Regardless of what happens, every business, every action that you take teaches you something. And you don't know where that knowledge is going to show up and what it's going to help you do in the future, whether it's your current business that you're in or one that you're going to switch to in a different time. Just, these hard learning lessons, when you feel like you're on the ground and the world is kicking you, there's a lesson to learn in that. And as hard as it is, that lesson will never be forgotten and it will serve you well in the future. So keep going. Anybody who's in that difficult spot right now, just keep going. There are always opportunities and always a way out, even if it seems like all the doors are closed around you. So yeah, that's about it. Best of luck.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for being here. That brings us to the end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and inspiring us all. To our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying with us until the very end. Remember to follow, like, and share. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to have uplifting and inspiring conversations just like this.